For today's tutorial, a poppy flower and pixels of a poppy flower. You will need one sweatshirt, I will use black one, then the printed PDF pattern, a pen with a sharp tip, the following DMC 6-strand hand embroidery threads: 3816, 561, 351, 347, 3852, and you will also need a bit of black, any kind of thread that you have at home. It can also be a sewing thread because we don't need it for so much. Also embroidery scissors, embroidery needle number 6, 5-inch embroidery hoop, and transferring paper. Today I will use white transferring paper because I'm working with black sweatshirt, but if you want to embroider a light sweatshirt, then the transferring paper should be dark. So first I'm positioning the pattern on the sweatshirt, and that you can do it after you try your sweatshirt on, and then you want to see where you want to do it. So from my measurement, I will do it like one, from my sweatshirt, just one finger down the collar, and then I try to make it as symmetrical as I can, so I follow these edges. And after, I cut it apart from the transferring paper, and I will also maybe mark with a pen, like I will just make 2 dots just so I know where my pattern was in case it moves. So then I will put, so with the slippery side of the paper, that one goes towards the sweatshirt, and then the other side goes towards the paper. And then, because the sweatshirt has 2 layers and it's already, you need a harder surface for transferring, so that's why I just have a notebook and then with a hard covers, and I will just put it between the layers of the sweatshirt, so inside the sweatshirt and under the position of the flower. I will also check again the points that I left for the pattern. Yeah, so then I need to move it a bit. So now I will trace the outlines of the flower. Like, you need to press a lot because usually this paper works with the fabrics that are more flat, but because jersey is a bit soft, so this paper sometimes doesn't work. So then it has to, I always would check if it's coping. That's why the pen is good if it's sharp. These dots, even if they're not coping, I will anyway just add them after on the top, so it's not so important. I'm pressing very hard because it's better to press and then to do it once. So I will repeat the same for the other part. So now I will cut again from the paper because this one is a bit ruined. If you see like traces from the paper, with washing that will go away. So now I will also trace this part. Some of the lines, if you don't see them, also this is like a white ink pen. I will just repeat them a bit. And it's also fine if not all the squares are equal, because that's why it's handmade. You don't need to make everything perfect. So now after we transfer the pattern, I will start embroider. So first we install the hoop. I will start with the flower petals. So then when you have a sweatshirt, you take care that the surface is not too stretched. So then I will never stretch it more than the natural stretchiness of the jersey. So it has to look something like this. So first we start with a dark red. So I cut around 60 centimeters, or like a bit more than the length of your half arm. So I take 3 strands. Then at the end I'm tying a knot. So then I'm starting with this petal. And then I will use the technique long and short stitch. So first I'm making a row of stitches close to the outlines. And then here the second line would be somewhere in between the threads. So then the important thing is that you make the stitch next to the previous one longer than the other. So I try to follow the same direction all the time. So when you see a space, then you can just go back to fill it up. You have to be careful that you don't pull down the stitches too much, because that way you will create a tension on the jersey. You have to leave them on the surface to breathe a bit. Actually, this is a more freestyle technique because you don't need to follow any specific rules. Just I try the stitches to be in the same direction, and as I said, between the stitches they have to have difference in the length, so you shouldn't make all the stitches the same that are next to each other. So here I will finish with a thread. So I'm making a knot. So with my finger I'm creating a loop, and then I'm putting the thread in the loop, and then I'm pushing it with my fingers close to the sweatshirt. Then I have to repeat the same thing once or twice again, so the knot is more stable. And then I will cut it like half of a centimeter close. Continue with the rest of the red. So again I have 3 strands. I'm tying a knot at the end. So now I'm continuing with the red. Okay, so now I will close it again with a knot. Another way to do a knot is also you find the stitch behind, and then the needle should pass through the loop that is forming, so like there, and then the knot is, so again. I will tie one more to be more secure. For the next step, I will use the orange one, so like 351. We'll take again 3 strands, one by one as before. So now I will continue. So I will put the stitches inside the red ones. So now I'm using the leftover, another 3 strands from the orange. I will take 4 strands from the red now. For now, I will ignore the lines that we drew in the middle because I will add them on the top after when we finish with the petals. This petal I'm embroidering in another direction, so the texture differs from the first one and looks natural. For the next one, I will use 2 strands from the red one and 2 from the orange. So I will just take the thread that I have from the red, the leftover, and I will measure the same length, and I will cut the orange one. Now I will continue embroidering the same direction, and the second row of stitches, I will put it somewhere in between, so they will end somewhere in between the row of the first row of stitches. So, and again I will take care that they're not the same length. So, because if they're the same length, there like holes will be formed, and it won't be so synchronized as it is now. So now I'm taking the leftover, so the 4 strands from the orange one, to finish the rest of the petal. Now I will add few stitches in the spaces where I see that black spots are peeking. So now again I took 4 from the red. So in the middle I will leave a bit of black because anyway I will use the black thread for thereafter. Okay, and now I will continue also with the same color on the other petal, so I use the thread. So now we're taking 4 strands from the orange. For this part here, I will use a bit of yellow, 3 strands from the yellow, And then I will take one strand from the orange, and then I will put them together. So now I'm using 3 strands from the orange thread, but you can also use 4, just because I had 3 leftovers. And I will finish the rest of the last petal. So it's important that when you are meeting with the stitches 1 and like 2 petals, that the stitches go in another direction, so they don't, so it divides the 2 petals, because I don't use outlines, just with the stitches. You can form like a natural outline. So now, because these stitches go in this direction, I will make this petal in the other direction. And I mean, probably you've noticed for the other one, that's how I divide the 2 different petals, one from another. So now, as I did before, I will, when I make the second line of stitches, I just stick the needle somewhere between the first row. So now I'm taking 4 strands of the orange to finish the last part. I mean last part for now. So now I will use the black thread. Currently I had some of the embroidery threads that are not actually dividing, so I will just use that one. You can really use anything, and if you have like from the 6 strands embroidery threads, you can use 3 of them. I will just look at the print and then I will just add few of the lines like on the drawing on the top of the stitches that are already made. So the enters of the stamens I will do with the French knot. So with my right hand I'm holding the needle because I'm writing with my right hand, and then with the left one I'm holding the thread. So then on this part between my fingers and the sweatshirt, I'm making 3 times around the knot. So then I'm going into the same hole, and then I pull the thread so it makes a nice shape around the needle, and then the needle goes through, and then we have a knot. So we will repeat that a few times. So like 1, 2, 3. We can also just use 2, 1, 2, so they're not super enormous. So 1, 2 in the same hole. So 1, 2 in the same hole. So then I'll make like few knots like here. Some of them can be smaller, so maybe I just go once around the needle. So now I will continue with the stem of the poppy. For that purpose I will use the lighter green, so 3816. And I will use 3 strands from the thread. And for this part I will use the satin stitch technique. So I will make like diagonal lines parallel next to each other. So now we'll use 3 strands from the darker green, so 6 5 5 6 1. And first I will do the little stem with the stem stitch. So I push the thread, and when I see the line of the pen I stick the needle. Okay, so and now we'll continue with the leaves, and I will also use the long and short thread technique. So like just randomly I will fill them up. The outlines can also be with stem stitch. So now we finished the first part, so the puppy, and I will continue with embroidering the pixels. So here I use the satin stitch, and actually I will continue using the satin stitch for all the other pixels. As you can see here again, I'm very careful on not pulling the stitches too much inside. I do not make them tight, but leave them to breathe a bit above the surface of the sweatshirt. So now I took 3 strands from the orange and I will do the orange pixels. So we are using the same satin stitch. So for the last 2 pixels here, I will use a yellow. So now the first 3 pixels, I will do them with the dark green, and then the 3 down, I will do them with the light green. So now the last 3 pixels, we're doing them with a brighter green.